way I know how to make a good, dependable sheath. If you want to make a Kydex sheath all by itself, one that's not going to be laminated with leather, another way to do it is to lay a piece of your Kydex down like so, take another piece of Kydex, set it on the top, and then heat this top piece of Kydex, and then press down with something that will take the form of the knife, something like a sponge or something of that sort, until it cools off, and then you simply pop rivet these two halves together and you'll have a Kydex sheath. Simple. But what we want to do is we want to have the thinnest possible Kydex sheath, and so we made it out of a single layer, and now we're going to lay on some leather. Now there's a lot of ways to put a piece of leather around a sheath. Let me show you one of the easiest ways I know how to do it. What you do is you start out with your piece of file folder cardboard. Remember, you don't want to do this with a piece of expensive leather. So you lay out your file folder and you take your finger, which is 1.5 inches for me. You want about 1.5 inches from the edge of your sheath to the edge of the pattern you're making. It's about like that. And I'll do it again up here. That's about like so. Now I got about 1.5 inches of extra out there. Next thing you want to do is carefully roll the sheath over. Sounds like a song. And do it again on the back side. Mark about 1.5 inches and 1.5 inches and 1.5 inches, like so. And that gives you a little line. You can see I made some strange dots here. And I'm just going to go ahead and connect the dots like that. Now you're going to have a lot of extra stuff left over when you do this job. Don't worry about that. It's better to have too much than not enough. I guess that's the same way as it is with money, love, and shelter, huh? Okay, so this is your basic pattern. Now what's going to happen is this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lay, after I cut the leather, I'm going to lay the leather right on here, like so. Kind of square it up around the knife, and now somewhere in here is where the knife is going to go. You'll be able to feel that with the leather. And I'm going to go ahead and just poke the knife into the sheath, and that will make a pocket for the knife, and you'll see. But that's the basic piece, and I'm going to cut that out of a hunk of leather. The leather we're going to use is some of the stuff that was left over from the coat that Karen made for me in Cave Cookin' 3, and this is deer skin. If you look at it, you can see that it stretches a little bit, and that's kind of characteristic I like on a sheath, because we want it to be nice and tight once we do it. I'll go ahead and lay my pattern on there like this, and you can see I've left a little extra there. I like lots of extra on it. You'll see why. I'll just go ahead and make a little mark here, give me a kind of a rough idea of where I want to cut. There we go. I've tried a lot of different kinds of glues in the last few years to find a way to get this leather to attach properly to the Kydex, because Kydex is just naturally resistant to gluing. What I've finally come up with is this stuff here called Duro. It's a all-purpose spray adhesive, and this stuff works pretty good. It's made by Loctite Corporation, and among the ones that I've found, this is about the best that I've been able to locate. It dries pretty quick, and it works really well. It holds this stuff for a lot of years. Well, several years anyway. This is an example here. This is a little piece of leather that I glued onto a hunk of Kydex, and it's on there like that. It's waterproof, and it stays a little sticky for quite a while, and that stickiness just helps to make sure that as this thing gets stretched and pulled and so forth, it works its way down into the pores of the Kydex, and it creates a pretty permanent bond. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm working on English. Now, I've gone ahead and I've set the sheath down on my piece of leather here, as you can see. And what I'm going to do is this. I've positioned the sheath approximately where it needs to be. That's about 1.5 inches in from the edges, like so. Now I know about where the knife is going to be inserted into the sheath, because there's a big hole right there. And at that point, what I'll do is I'll come to the back of the sheath here. Let me turn this around so you can see it like this. This is about where the knife is going in. So what I want to do is draw kind of a line out here like this. and this piece will flop over the top of the sheath, and this piece will flop over there. Now there's a reason for doing the cut in advance. I'll show you that in just a second. Let me make this cut, and I'll show you. There we go. I don't want to go all the way. Now let me turn this around again, like so. Now what's going to happen is this. This piece here will stretch over the top of what's going to be the belt loop, and this piece then will stretch over the top of the sheath itself. And you can see I've got lots of extra material here. That's a real good thing, because I'll be able to turn that into tassels or whatever, but I have something to work with now. But that's kind of how it's all going to go together. In order to make the actual attachment to the leather, though, what I want to do is I want to do the back of the sheath first. This is the first thing that I'm going to glue. So what we need to do now is remove everything that's in the area that could get overspray on it, and I'm sure that this will make you a lot happier if you do what I'm about to do. Getting everything out of here. Out, out! There we go. Now, I've spread this this towel out again because I'm going to have this stuff spraying everywhere. There's a reason for that. Once I've sprayed this thing, I'll be able to take the towel and fold it back over again, and that traps the extra glue in between the folds of the towel, and I don't have it getting everywhere in the house. So I'm going to take my cutting board off, grab my Duro glue. I don't know if you're supposed to shake this stuff or not, but I always do. It just makes me feel better. There we go. And I'm going to spray this stuff on there. Now, you can go ahead and feel pretty liberal with this. It might be the only time you'll be liberal. Anyway, that was a political comment. Let's see here. Still looks kind of whitish. There we go. It's already sticking to everything. In fact, I can feel the hairs on my arms starting to stick to each other. Now we'll stretch that out and lay this on there. Take the bottom of the sheath and stretch the leather out like so. Just pull it out away this way a little bit, so you kind of pre-stretch the leather, and that'll give you a little tighter connection. After it's all stretched, go ahead and press it down into the leather like so. This stuff doesn't take long to set up. It takes about 10 minutes or so, and it's got a pretty tight seal. In 24 hours, of course, it's basically a permanent seal. Now I've got the back of the thing glued in place. Now we're ready to do the front of the sheath. So I need to make sure I get plenty along the spine of the knife and along the top of where I put my rivets. And I'm just going to do the sheath part first. There we go. Ooh, that's gooey. Pull it over and stretch her tight. If you don't catch all the Kydex, you can kind of manipulate the leather up there. There we are. See how she stretches on. And using your thumb and fingers, you can kind of draw the leather in the direction you want it to go. There we go. The harder you press on it, the more she wiggles down in there. At the same time, you're gluing both of these pieces of leather together on the side. Now that pretty much covers the sheath itself. The next thing is to do the top. Now, remember I cut a little knock out of this thing here, a little piece, to allow the knife to insert. You can see it's not. I didn't cut it all the way. I need to make just a little bit more of a slice here, if I can see. That's good enough. Not quite. Sometimes a pair of scissors don't do what a knife can do. There we go. That's it. Now this will be stretched out like so. So we'll put another layer of goop on there. Ooh. Yeah, put a little up here too. like this. Stretch it good and tight, like that. Make sure you push it down inside of where the knife is going to go. Looks like I didn't get enough in there. That happens sometimes. There we go. And that is about it. The next step is to put the knife in the sheath. The purpose of this is to help to mold the leather and hold everything in place. So now I've got the leather covered sheath pretty much ready to go. What I'll do is I'll let this set and dry, let the glue do its thing, and when I'm done I can come back through and stitch along the edge of the sheath and then slice like so and make little tassels hanging off of it. But we're also going to need to do something about this belt loop, and we'll tell you about that in just a minute. Well, the sheath has been sitting out in the sun now for about an hour and a half, so the glue is pretty well set. It's got this leather on here nice and tight, and it's not too sticky to the touch either any longer, and that's an important sign. The next thing we want to do here is we want to come along and put some stitching right at the edge of the sheath here, because I want to kind of define the edge of the sheath. Now if you don't want to do what I'm going to do, you can simply fold the leather over something like this and glue it to the back of the Kydex sheath, something like this, to define it if you like that look. But what I want to do is I want to make some little tassels that are going to hang off the edge here and give it a kind of wilderness look. But before we start doing that, that stitching, I want to show you a couple of tools that will make it a little easier. When you go to do the stitching, one of the things you might want to see is a good even stitch line going along the edge of the sheath. One way to get the stitch even is to have something like this little spur gear here. And what this does is this marks the leather when you roll over it like so. And if you put a stitch in each one of those little holes, that'll give you a good even stitch. If you don't want to spend the money for one of those tools, this is just a gear from an old clock. I tore the clock apart and took the gear out, put a pin through it, and mounted it on a wooden dowel. It's not a very good job, but it works. I'll show you. Like so. And this is a little wider spacing. So the different gears will give you, of course, thinner or a larger spacing for your stitching. That's two ways to do it. Now another way to do it is to use something like this here. This is actually a punch, and you can see it has 4 big teeth on it. The idea behind one of these is you put it on your leather and you tap it with a hammer and it makes a set of marks, and into those you put your stitches. Now you can use regular lacing with one of these because it actually cuts a slash through the leather. So regular lacing works out real nicely. Something that's helpful when you're stitching through leather is this material here. This is called Tyvek. It's actually an insulation that's used in building homes, and you can get a 4x8 sheet of this stuff for, well, they practically give it to you. I don't know what it is, $4 or $5 at the most for a big old sheet of it. But what it does is it gives you kind of a nice backing for your leather, so when you're stitching, it punches right through into the Tyvek, and you don't have to hold the other side with your finger. Some people, when they're stitching leather, hold the leather like so, and then have to push the needle through, and it stretches the leather out, and sometimes you miss where you're trying to go. But with Tyvek, you've got your spot, you spot it, just push through like that, and the needle goes right on in. For thread, I generally use this stuff here. This is called artificial sinew. Now this one here, you see, has got kind of a waxy coating on it. You probably can't see that, but it holds its shape a little better, and it's a little bit brownish looking. This one here doesn't have any kind of a coating on it at all, and some people like this because you can roll it into a thread form if you want. But it's often called artificial sinew. It's available from muzzle loading shops and so forth. It's relatively inexpensive, and you get a lot of it for about $5, like a big old roll like this. I'm going to go ahead and use the brown artificial sinew for our project here. The stitching method I'm going to use is the same as the one we showed in Volume 3 of the Woodsmasters series, and I'm just going to go ahead and push through here. My Tyvek out. There we go. Now that I got some nasty stitching in here, what I'm going to do is trim this fringe, what's going to be the fringe right around here like that. Now because of the glue over splatter, this is probably going to be kind of stuck together. Just go ahead and leave it that way. Makes it easier to cut. There we go. At that stage, oops. Now you can go ahead and pull them apart if you want to. Or you can leave them together, it doesn't make much difference. You can see how that glue sticks the stuff together. There we go. Now what I'm going to do is put a little fringe on that. Now I'm going to just make some little cuts in here to kind of put a fringe. Be sure to leave enough space for that thread to keep its purchase. I just kind of eyeball these babies when I do it. Nobody's going to be picking up your knife and examining it for workmanship. Incidentally, the stitching on this took a little over 5 minutes. I could have spent more time on it, but it didn't seem like something that I wanted to spend a lot of time on. As before, grunting is always a good thing. There we go. Now I got a little fringe on the sheath. You can fluff that up a little bit. There we go. That'll do its thing after a while. So we got a kind of a sheath ready now. You can see how she fits together. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take that little hole that I drilled in here and I'm going to put a leg strap through there. And I still have to decide how high I want this to hang on my belt. I don't know if I want it to hang low or high. That's kind of up to you. I like little knives like this to hang up close to my waist, so I'm going to probably go ahead and heat this and bend it close up and then just fold this over. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If I want the sheath to ride low on my belt, all I need to do is take another piece of Kydex like this, and I could cover it with leather, and then simply pop rivet that baby, or even drill holes in here and lace it on. And this then would become the belt loop on the back of the sheath. Remember, if you covered it with leather, it would look real nice. If you drill a little hole here and here, you could run a strap around to the front of the sheath, and then you have kind of a decorative strap right up there in the front. That's kind of up to you, but you can attach this in 1,000 different ways, but it's just an overlay of more Kydex. Since I'm going to wear this high, I'm going to go ahead and bend this right about in here, and this will fold down like so. When you're bending it with the leather in place, you want to make sure you don't burn the leather, so we're going to go on low, and I'm going to just heat it right in this area here. Once that's cooled off, we have a little belt attachment point here. Now to make sure it's good and tight, what I'm going to do is drill a hole through here, and then wrap a piece of leather around the front of the sheath. But right now, it looks about like that, and this will ride nice and high on my waist. Let's finish this up.